The majority of everybody out there, and this is, I hope this doesn't hurt your feelings, but I hope it does if it helps you be a better business leader.
Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroads Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business, working through adversity, and pouring back into the community that keeps our doors open. We're your hosts, Taylor, Matt, and Shelby, and we'll bring you relevant local business advice and automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business, and may even throw in a plug for you to do business with us.
Welcome, Northwest Arkansas and beyond, to the Lewis Brothers podcast. Man, is today an exciting subject. We talk about inventory. I love talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
Turn and burn, mastering the power of moving inventory. What a headline there.
Yeah.
What a headline. Hey, we'll dive in today. We want to teach all the business owners out there what we have learned about inventory. Not to get emotionally connected to it, using the power of compounding and let's call it the X factor. You know what I mean? To make you more money and not getting hung up on that textbook thing you learned in high school or maybe in college on it has to be a certain margin. We'll show you how to beat the odds and beat that textbook today. So grab yourself a cup of coffee. Let's dive in today. Hey, Taylor, before we do that, in case they missed last week was a good one.
It was a really good one, and it's managing the difficult employees. And you heard us reference, we grew up with horses, but it's handling that. The high-performance racehorse versus the old gray mare.
Yeah.
You know what? They're going to be at two different levels. You're going to manage them differently, and that's okay. That's okay to do. Don't let someone tell you differently. But it was managing employees. It was doing all the different circumstances to make sure your ball keeps going around.
I agree.
Really big there. Hey, make sure you visit us there at lewissuperstore.com and also hit that like and subscribe button on the bottom to catch all of our content.
All right, so we dive in today talking about our core discussion, which is turn and burn, mastering the power of moving our inventory. And inventory is kind of all the way across the board. So we'll dive into that and make sure that we go over all the details. Talking about cars, our vehicles on the lot, new vehicles versus used vehicles. Talking about parts.
Yep.
Talking about our time, and I know you're
one.
thinking just inventory. We were going to talk about GT500s and 392s and all the things there. So let's break that down.
Okay.
And what is most important as we look into inventory? All right, so as we look into this, real quick before we go fully through it, what did we drive today?
Wow, that's a new segment.
What did we drive today?
Hey, up on the way here today, we drove a Grand Wagoneer L.
Yes.
And the L meaning the extended length. The Grand Wagoneer, just a couple fun facts. I don't know if y'all noticed on the way up here, but the night vision was on.
Night vision was on. I was hitting a lot of buttons.
What was happening?
There's more screens. I turned on a waterfall effect, which is massage.
Okay.
I get in the car and I let's go ahead and hit the massage feature, heated seat. I know it's hot outside. Went ahead and turned the air conditioning on.
Okay.
There was this another screen in front of me that I could play something in front of and send directions over to you.
Hey, podcast station, can you see what I'm dealing with as we're driving up here trying to get everybody to focus to get their game face for what we're going to talk about today? My brother's in the massaging seat.
I'm in the second row, like VIP, center console, and I need my heated seats. Don't worry about anything
Were they
else. Oh, yeah.
So as we got prepared for this podcast today, we were coming up in style in a Grand Wagoneer L.
Is that your daily driver?
It's not my daily driver, but I got
for
management
sale.
to approve an exception that we could drive it up here today.
You didn't ask for approval.
That'll be another segment of that Shelby does still drive a unicycle to work every day. I mean,
It's important. That's
Hey, but back on to inventory. Let's talk about what they came here for.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about the inventory, and it's not just the vehicles,
Okay.
and it's not just the parts, but it is inventory. It is parts. It is so important because inventory or all the things is our business, is our money and how you create the business.
It really is. So I'm going to break down a couple of definitions so we can all start on the same page here.
Okay.
When we talk about inventory, we're talking about two things. A physical product, which in our business could be a vehicle, new, used, or parts, or you're talking about time. And everybody in business out there has one of those two, okay? If you have a business of mowing yards or doing services, yours is time, okay? If you own a bike shop or you own a goods or a merchandise place. You have products. Our business is unique that we have both.
Yes.
We have both. So we sell vehicles, both new and used, and then we service vehicles, and that's the time.
Yes.
That's the time. Too many people get caught up in what their per hour should be. Okay, that would be in the time category, or what that their margin or their gross profit should be on the product.
Yep.
Now, I do think that's important, though. So before we get too far off in the deep end, you've got to have a starting point on going, hey, here is my target per hour that each bay needs to generate in our shop, or here's what our percentage needs to be on the vehicles when we get ready to price them. So that is important to note.
So we have that X factor, like in the shop that we look at. We look and say, hey, how many bays do we have?
Yep.
So let's say 26 bays.
Yep.
And the goal is to have, now some technicians have the capacity to be overly efficient and need multiple bays. But our metric is if you have 26 bays, you should have at least
26 techs.
26 techs.
Yeah.
And if you don't, if you say you have someone that's more efficient, each bay, never mind the techs, needs to turn at least 8 hours.
So that's a good point Shelby talks about there, and a lot of y'all can relate it to your business. We're making it really simple here. If we've got a shop and it's got 26 bays, those bays are responsible for generating 8 hours a day.
And so that's kind of what we'll call efficiency.
Yeah,
so we look at the efficiency. So 26 bays by 8 hours. And so we look at our efficiency per the day of hours that we could have sold.
Yep.
And then if we sold them, did we produce those hours? And that's how we kind of get our efficiency. So that's managing our time. And so then if you get a little creative, let's say you've got somebody that's mowing yards for you.
Yep.
And really good at mowing.
Sure.
And he said, hey, I need to be paid X dollars more.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like the normal guy's getting paid $15 a yard, whatever it may be. Okay, I hear you. It's the same thing if one of our guys wants another bay, but you need to cover the spread.
You do.
You need to at least cover 16 hours. You need to cover at least 2 yards in the time that one guy could do it, so then I can pay you double.
So that word efficiency can be cross-referenced over, if y'all have heard of this in the hotel industry or maybe the Airbnb or the VRBO, that's occupancy.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the same thing. You got to realize when we talk business, we relate automotive, but guys, business is business is business. It's people and it's processes. We all either have a product or we have a service, and the service is connected to an hourly rate and what can you turn there, or the product is the product. That's what we're talking about today is how many times can we turn it?
Yeah.
Because let's take your 26 bay analogy. So 26 bays at 8 hours a day. What happens if only 20 of those bays turn the 8 hours and the other 6 turn 0? Tomorrow, can you make up those other 6 bays?
No, and the best reference that I've ever heard, and I always kind of go back to this, is it's just like a bus pass.
Okay.
At the beginning of the month, you build or you go buy a bus pass. Let's say it was $200. I have no clue. But if it's $200, at the end of the month, no matter how many times you rode that bus, that $200 is gone.
It's gone.
So you decide the value that you get in that. So tomorrow, we can't make up those 6 times 8 bays that didn't turn any hours.
And to some of y'all out there like, well, I could just work a little bit harder. No, all you did is prove that you could be more efficient. And then I'd ask you, why don't you do that every day?
Why didn't you do that yesterday?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, if you lose 6 of those bays, it could have generated another 8 hours. And my Prairie Grove math tells me that's an additional 48 hours.
Yeah.
That 48 hours of revenue is gone.
It's lost.
Now we're getting deep really quick, so I hope you're dialed in here. Let's really talk about that. That 48 hours, you said no to those jobs because they didn't generate. Let's take in our case scenario. Well, let's keep math easy here. It was $150 an hour, and you're like, no, somebody offered us $100 an hour, but we got to stay at $150. You look up at the end of the day, you lost 48 hours that maybe you could have gotten at $100 an hour.
Something is better than nothing is what you're saying.
That's the point.
So you have to keep that. You have to know your cost of goods.
Yes.
Whether it's your cost of time of the employees. But you're sitting there with your VRBO, and you're like, hey, no, $450 is what I rent at. $450 is what I rent at. $450 is what I rent at. Or, hey, our shop rate is this.
Yep.
Or our car should sell for this. And you're sitting there with an empty occupancy, like no one's there. And so what happens more often than not, we see it all the time, and we're okay with it. And we often say, leave your feelings in the car. Don't get your feelings hung up on it should be X or it should be Y. Find at the level that it makes sense, right? And then just multiply that efficiency. And so we talk about efficiency. How do we keep that tech in their bay?
Yep.
So we're bringing parts to them.
Sure.
Climate controlled so they feel better, so they can function better. Those are all the X factors that we put in to make sure we are efficient.
All right, I got to go, not off course, but I got to help with that just a little bit because this is going to help business owners out there, especially if you're a small business. Let's say you got 2, 3, 5, less than 10.
Yeah.
A lot of times a business with less than 10 people out there, you're wearing a lot of the hats. You might have scheduled the stuff, but you're also in the ditch digging, or you're also doing this or that. If you don't remove yourself from that, you can't help everybody else be more efficient. Shelby just talked about keeping the technician in their bay. Well, if you're working on a car yourself, it's really hard for you to see, how do I make those others more efficient? The encouraging part about this for all business owners out there is it's not easy, and you got to be able to adjust. Now, we're in football season, so I'm going to talk about football. It's no different than a quarterback. They got to be able to come up to the line of scrimmage, and they got the play they're going to run, but then they read the defense, and they call audibles. So if our bays are not full for the day, we need to call an audible and maybe run a special. I think everybody could relate to this. Sonic does a great job of this. So Sonic found a low time during the day. They created a happy hour.
2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, half-price drinks, right? So then that builds a rush from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It's also the time when people get out of school.
Sure.
And then it creates frequency, creates a habit.
Yes.
And so now they don't care what time it is. They're going to Sonic to get a drink.
That's right. So they looked at their business and they filled a void. They're like, we're already paying employees to be there. We're already paying all the utilities. Let's drive the traffic there. And maybe when we do that, we'll build our customer database. So when we start talking about time, if you're in a service, how do you maximize your hours every single day if you're in a product or service out there? You can do that through different ways. You can run specials. You can ask a customer to do it during certain times.
Yeah.
So if Tuesday isn't as busy for you, or in Sonic's case, is from 2 to 4 is not as busy for you, that you target that. You target that. And so many times we're like, we don't want to make it difficult for the customer, but the customer will do things. They'll find a coupon.
Yeah.
They'll come during a certain time. You know what I mean? They'll fly on certain dates. You know?
You also made a point, and I have to stop and just point it out, of to be adaptable. Because think of our bays. If we say, hey, 26 bays, and I'm just using that number for reference, if I have one internal technician that does all of our internals, but over the weekend we had 58 trade-ins, and if there's a couple other bays that aren't full, you need to be just like the quarterback, adaptable, and say, there is no way that we can run the ball straight up there. There's no way that one technician can efficiently get all 58 trades through there. Let's take Bill and Steve, who are over here that are transmission techs or that are maybe lube techs. Let's move some of them. Let's audible them and say, hey, I know you're normally just handling customer work, but today at X time we don't have. And so we just call that audible, move it over here, so we're filling more spots so the hours out. You're not just sitting there saying, no, I'm just a master appraiser, I'm just a master, a plumber that does, I only do remodels, or I only do new construction. So understanding that, like, business is business is business, and if somebody needs you or wants you, you better find a way to adapt to that, or you'll get run over.
But without a good leader taking that person and going, hey, I need the tight end to move over here to block this person. Well, you know what I mean? I need the journeyman to go fill this spot because we have the availability. We don't have enough capacity. It won't happen. A leader has to take the step in direction there. Taylor, no different than the airlines. I know you're always studying that stuff, so I want you to use that as a way to relate to, if you fly certain times, you get a better rate, and they're just filling time.
Absolutely. They're filling time. They start, a lot of times we laugh about whenever we book trips for meetings or anything else, it's waiting until the last minute. And a lot of times you can wait till the last minute. And more times than not, now their way as far as how they're filling everything up, you can find a deal at the end if you wait till the very end. But the way that travel and everything's been going right now, it's of you see it fill up because the demand is there. So being able to move and pivot in there whenever service comes in, whenever you're looking at selling of any of your inventory, you have to be able to look at it and say, hey, okay, wait, I've got this special, I'm going to put it out there,
Sure.
and be able to use that. So that's what an airline will be, of putting anything out there of, hey, X, Y, and Z is available, and they put it out there so that, hey, bring this along, you can check that, and it's being able to read, obviously, your full scope, that this is what's available, and what's good on the line there. But as far as bringing it back, because obviously I do love a whole lot of things aviation-wise and moving it into there. The one point whenever Matt and Shelby were talking about, and you'll hear this more and more as we continue on, you're going to have a set of guidelines and rules that help you do business every single day. But yourself as a leader, what you have to be able to do is pivot and move.
Sure.
If you don't do that and change and adapt and call your audible and do this and do that, whether it be in sales, service, parts, you're going to miss out on opportunity. Because whenever we talk about whenever the fish are running, you never know when it is. You have to be able to adapt to facilitate that. So big deal there of being able to change and make sure that you're available whenever the time is needed.
Yeah, so as we go from managing time, we talked a good amount about managing time, whether it be time in the shop or managing the people. Switching over to managing inventory. That's what most people are thinking when we're talking about managing inventory. So we've got new cars, which come from the new car factory. So we have to, I say that because everyone asks for the used car factory, but new cars, we order those. That's pretty far out there, right? That we kind of schedule, try to figure out what exactly we need to fill the holes. They show up on the lot. And so what's the average turn generally we say on a new car? I guess what it is and then what we think and what it needs to be.
And I think there's three pieces there we'll talk about turn. New car, like you said, used car, and the parts. So on the new car, our new car goal there is about 60 days or less, but sometimes that can creep up to 90 or more depending upon the time of year. So we got to be very flexible there.
Yeah.
On the used side, our goal is 45 days or less. Our average inventory turn on the used side is 28 days. So we beat the turn there, and then parts the same thing, 45 days or less. Now that means for everybody listening out there, what's that turn mean? That means you take however much you have in your cost of goods for that month, if we're talking dollars, okay? So if your cost of all your goods sold for the month is $1 million, okay, and you've got $1.5 million in inventory, you've got a 45-day supply. That means every month and a half you're turning your inventory.
Completely.
Just so everybody knows, for an equation out there. We do turn it two different ways. If it's in parts, we do it on our cost of sale. And then in vehicles, new and used, just to give a quick lesson here, we do two different metrics. One of them's on the unit itself. So if you sell 100 units a month and you have 150 in stock, that's a 45-day supply. You turn it every 1.5. We also do it on our cost of units, too, to make sure we have the right units in stock.
The right mix. Yeah, so you're not stocked up with Air Jordan 1s, and everyone's buying a 10. Air Jordan 10, I don't know, but just in reference of something else, that you don't have the wrong things. You didn't buy a bunch of cherry limeades for the 2 to 4 o'clock rush, and everybody wants the Sprite Zero or something.
And that's important. So anytime we look at metrics or we look at KPIs, we call it a 30,000-foot view. It's not the end-all, be-all. It's the starting point.
Yeah.
Okay? So I want to talk a little bit about inventory. The majority of everybody out there, and I hope this doesn't hurt your feelings, but I hope it does if it helps you be a better business leader, okay? Did I say both of those at once?
No, you're good.
The majority of inventory out there, they're depreciating items.
Yes.
They're depreciating items. That means it's worth the most it's going to be worth today.
Yes.
So if you wait 10 days, it's worth less. If you wait 30 days, it's worth even less. One of our metrics we look at is what our daily holding cost is. Every single day, our items go down in value, okay? So leave your emotions at the door and run your business as a business.
So break that down real quick. Holding costs.
Okay.
So what at a
Okay.
this level.
We won't get too deep there.
Yeah, no.
So
Yeah.
holding costs, you need to look at per day, what does it cost you to hold that item? And things would go into play like there of depreciation. You know, how much does it go down? Number two, that money, okay, that same amount of money, if you invested it in, whether you own your own inventory or you have a loan, it doesn't matter. That money still needs to make money for you.
So
okay?
if an interest rate is at 8%.
If it's at 8%,
Yes.
then you have to look at what's your daily holding cost. So if you got $100,000 at 8%, you know, then you divide it by your working day, you know, your days in that month, and per day it costs you that in interest. And you have to just get that point for just a minute. And I don't care whether you paid cash for your stuff or not. Like, throw that out the window, because you could have taken your cash.
You could have put it in a CD. You could have put it in a market. You're going to get a guaranteed 5 to 5.5%.
And you wouldn't have had
cash.
any employees to manage. So it better beat the market, okay?
People get hung up on that because they say
hung up.
my cost of inventory did not increase. Like, I look at my cost of my tennis shoes, or I look at my cost of my plumber.
Because it's not coming out of your overall equation.
You look at it and you're like, no, I had $45,000 in that item, or I bought that townhouse for $300,000, and tomorrow the balance is still $300,000. It's really not.
No, it's not.
It's not.
How much did you pay in interest? So let's say you had, the easiest way to look at this is if you had a loan on it.
Yes.
Because you do.
Yeah.
You're either borrowing it from the bank or you're borrowing it from yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying yourself back for using your own money, who taught you that? You know what I mean? Who taught you that?
That's funny, because I was talking to a guy the other day, and we were talking about this and that, and he said, well, the building that I have, I'm in it rent-free because I own it. And I said, hey, that's solid, but you're paying yourself, right?
Yeah.
And he said, no. I said, you have to be paying yourself, because no one else will be that nice to you.
If you operate that way, I'm not going to be mean to you, but I'm just going to help you. That's our job here. If you operate that way, you're better off to rent from somebody else that's going to make you pay rent, and take that money and just put it in a money market or something like that. If you can't charge yourself. So you got to first, you got to get past that.
Yeah.
Number two, you got to understand that it's a depreciating item, okay? It's worth less tomorrow than it is today.
Yes.
So the quicker you turn it, the better off you are.
And that's in the majority of things we're talking about. I'm not saying the one-offs that you've got
Not your precious metals or whatever.
1991 McLaren or whatever it may be. And we're talking about daily items that depreciate. Your cost of insurance, your cost of your money factor.
Yes.
And it's also the cost of, and when we talk automobiles, how many times have your salespeople walked past it?
Oh, man.
And so then they're loved to be able to sell it. They're like, dang, that van's been out there for 45 days. I've shown it 10 times. Something must be wrong with it. That's not. It's just mentally in their head. So you have to keep that in your mind.
You really do.
So then we can take that idea, okay? I think they understand the cost, hopefully, of the daily operating cost. And you have to know that number. You know, on our used car, it's generally $45 to $85.
Hang on, because they're going to miss this. And what we're doing right now is we're trying to unpack so all the listeners really understand what an inventory is. We'll talk about turn and how to make more money here in a minute. But what Shelby just talked about is our managers know what that daily holding cost is. So give them one of the numbers and just do the quick math of 10 days, 20 days. What's that cost you?
Let's call it an average of $60.
Okay, so that means every day it costs you $60 to have that F-150 in stock.
If nothing changed, the market didn't change, interest rates, new rebates didn't come out, cost $60
You didn't
per
spend
day.
any more in advertising. You didn't
go through the
re-wax
shop, didn't get re-waxed, didn't get shampooed, didn't get vacuumed, didn't anything. So in 10 simple days, which happens very quickly,
like that,
$600.
$600. Okay, so if that was if we had 30 days for easy math, that's $1,800.
Okay, now multiply that.
Okay.
1,800 in 30 days, right?
Okay, got it.
By 100 used cars.
Okay, you got to add the zeros there. So
yeah, you just add this program math.
Okay, I know. Just stick with it a second. That's $180,000.
Okay, $180,000 in carrying costs.
Yep.
On an average of 30 days.
Sure.
On just 100 used cars.
And then it's not worth any more money, though, is it?
No, it's worth less.
It just costs you that money.
It costs you that much money, and I don't know we can go over this real quick. We have over 900 vehicles in stock.
Uh-huh.
And so what's your inventory look like?
So I'm going to help simplify that a little bit, because some people, I can tell you right now, I can't even see our audience, but they're having a hard time grasping that. It would be no different than going and taking $1 million loan from the bank. Okay, I don't mean line of credit. So all of y'all are thinking line of credit, oh, I don't have to pay interest till I use it. No, hush. Mm-hmm. Okay, you actually take the loan out for $1 million.
Yep.
Okay, you let it sit there for a month. You don't invest it. You don't do anything with it, but you have to pay the interest on it.
Yep.
It didn't grow in value, did it?
No, it's not worth it anymore.
It cost you money.
It cost you money.
It cost you money. You're like, yeah, but I got $1 million sitting there. Excuse me? It cost you money. You didn't put your money to work. That's what this episode is about, is understanding money through products and through inventory of time, and how to use the X factor to make you more.
So that breaks that down. I got to throw this in the middle of it to make sure we hadn't just like fried you. But we spend time there because we've been in a lot of meetings with like-minded people, and they still can't get it. They're like, no, I've got this 2007 BMW X30 with 20,000 miles, and somebody will pay me what it's worth, right? Yeah. And like, no.
So let's throw that out there. If you're going down that, of the vehicle that it's worth, okay, do your simple. If you're going over that it was
30 days was 1,800.
Okay, so 30 days was 1,800.
Okay.
On 31, I sold a car and I made $2,500.
You think you made $2,500?
Yeah, no, I sold it. I made $2,500. That's the way managers bring it to us all the time, and that's before of paying any of your other people that are in there. I sold it. I made $2,500. How much did I really make?
You really made $700
before you pay anybody.
Before you paid anybody.
But most businesses, including ourselves, okay, I'll call ourselves out here. We pay commissions on the $2,500.
Oh, yes.
That's how she gets a little sticky.
You know what I mean? So the $2,500, we pay the commissions, the 20% and the 10%. Yeah. So
but as a business,
we made $700 before we pay X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Before you pay the manager, the salesperson, the spiffs, the finance person,
not selling gross or not.
So the $2,500 doesn't look like $2,500.
No, so that's always a quick check. Shelby was going down that of meetings we've sat in before. And what we've learned over the years, because trust us, as Matt's learned, taught Shelby, taught myself of going through, that turn is the number one thing, because you can hold on to an item, a precious item he was talking about, going through, and there's one-off. Now, take your one-off, your 1%, put it over to the side. It's going to do what it's going to do. It's a collectible. But in normal, everyday items, whether consumables, products, parts, vehicles, whatever it would be, it's depreciating. And whenever you do that and you sell it, you're going to lose every single time the longer you hang on to it.
The longer you hold it, the worse it gets. So there's an X factor of turning inventory and turn it quickly. But before we get into that,
okay, let's break it.
We got to take a quick and today.
We're just getting deep.
Today, this day in history.
Okay, hit me with the history lesson.
October 1st, 1958.
Were you alive then?
Do I look that old? Dang! No, Googled it. American Express launched their first charge card in the U.S. and Canada.
Yes. 1958?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think my grandma might have been one of the first ones to get
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed. It was a charge card, which means I don't think that it was a credit card. You had to pay her back pretty much into the month. So this day, 1958, American Express launched first charge card in the U.S. and Canada. So in that X factor, Taylor, tell us why it is so important. We ran the gamut of what it looks like.
Yes.
31 days, we sell a car, make $2,500. We realized the cost of it was $1,800 of the cost of borrowing, or the cost of daily travel rate there. So it's $700. Why do we strive for that 30-day turn on a used car?
Yes. So whenever we put that factor in there and we're figuring that out in our whole algorithm, we do that because of what we've looked at. We can, take the unit, it's the newest, it's the freshest. The salespeople, the managers all know about it, and we're in the market price. Obviously, in turning that, we're going to take our dollar, and instead of holding it for a 60-day, a 90-day, anything else, one, we keep the inventory fresh. We keep everything that people are looking for. And then it brings the most value of our asset that we've invested the money in. And as something continues to depreciate down, not only does it go down in value, as things sit that are supposed to be moving, maintenance and everything else happens along the way.
The tires start getting flat spots. The batteries start going dead. Cars are made to be driven. We could spend hours on this subject. We're all from the variable side, and we've seen so many people do this wrong, and it's so easy to win at this.
Yes.
But the factor we look in, so help me with some quick math as we look at this. Let's say the average, let's just say dealership, right?
Okay.
Sells their cars on a 60-day turn.
Okay.
So a 60-day turn, how many times do they get to turn that in a year?
So 60-day turn, they get to turn that
Six times
a year.
6 times.
That's
Okay,
6 times a year.
6 times.
All right, I got your math.
At an average PVR, let's call it, that's per vehicle retail of $2,000.
How many units are they selling a month?
Well, just hit me with just 6 by $2,000.
Okay.
And that was an average cost of,
Okay.
this is not real, but
Okay.
let's
That's
just
$12,000.
$12,000
Okay.
at $40,000.
Okay. 40 grand. Gotcha.
Okay, so $40,000 was our investment.
Okay.
And we get to reinvest that every 60 days. Let's say the bank said your line
Gotcha.
of credit's $40 grand.
I got you. We're no interest there. $40,000 cost. We're going to turn that 6 times a year, which is every other month, at $2,000 profit to keep it easy. That's $12,000
Before.
that our $40,000 made us. Just so everybody understands.
Yeah, so our 40 grand made us $12,000 before we take into the cost of goods. But look at this X factor.
Okay.
This is so basic. Same $40,000,
Okay.
but on a 30-day term.
Okay, so we turn it 12 times a year.
We turn it 12 times.
Okay.
So that 12 times at the same PVR. Let's just call it even Steven here.
Okay. All right. That's 24,000.
We just doubled our money
Okay.
on the same $40,000.
Okay. I got you.
And so then you also have to look at breaking down the X factor of what else happens going from 6 to 12. Like, what else comes into a used car?
It does. Now, I'm going to call you out just a little bit here for all
Please
the owners because, everybody listening out there, they're like, okay, yeah, but you kept the same PVR, blah, 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 blah. You just decided to turn it quicker. A lot of times to turn it quicker, you got to adjust the pricing.
You do?
You do have to just. So let's take your same math.
Okay.
And let's say we got somebody out there that, graduated with an MBA or a doctor. Dr. Taylor over there. Okay. And they said, we got to run $2,000. We won't take any less than that, but they can only turn it 6 times in a year. Okay. And then we've got Shelby sitting next to the doctor, and he says, hey, I'll cut it to a $1,500.
So I reduce my price.
So I can turn it
the
more.
Sonic 2 to 4 to be able to sell more.
So he makes $500 less per vehicle,
Okay.
but doubles the turn.
So run that math. What does that look like?
All right, so at the 6 times turn with Taylor over there at 2,000, he made 12 grand on his $40,000 by
He didn't
turning.
really, but that's what
Didn't
it
really,
looks
but
like.
just gross. Okay, and then Shelby cut his front end PVR by 500, but turned it twice the amount. He made 18,000. Okay, so he made $6,000 more on the same $40,000 investment. I got to go deeper here, whether y'all want me to or not. Okay,
it's important.
so he made $6,000 more on the surface level. Now, in our case scenario, we had 2 times the transactions. Okay, so instead of 6 transactions, we had 12. That's 6 more transactions. Now, in our business, we run about a 70% of all of our transactions have a trade-in.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I take 70% of 6, that's 4.2. Let's just keep it at 4.
Yeah.
That equaled me 4 trade-ins additional over Taylor's that I get to acquire, run through my shop, and then I get to sell.
So that's the numbers and that's how it works. But if you're just saying, hey, I just want to be a business that just provides.
Okay, let's take the trades out of it.
So, but even thinking about that, of those 6 extra cars we sell, we get 4 extra trade-ins. And so then what do we have to do with those trade-ins?
So then those trade-ins, they run through the shop.
So there's a person working on those. We get to provide for their family.
Yep. For the technician, Parts has to provide parts for them. Okay. And then we also give our used car building. You're talking about the used car factory.
Yes.
That is the used car factory.
It is.
Selling that new car. Okay.
So then we didn't have to go buy that car from an auction.
We didn't.
So then we know the history to it. It was a local car.
Yep.
We run it through the shop. It goes through reconditioning where we detail the car.
Yep.
Average cost generally in our reconditioning is generally $1,200. So that's
Yes.
$1,200 that we got to disperse through the business.
That's
that was
right.
not revenue,
Yeah.
or net revenue, should I say.
Sure.
It gets to go to parts and service and to reconditioning, and the guy that vacuums it, and the guy that replaces a windshield or paints a bumper, all those things. But we got to do that on that math 4 extra times.
4 extra times. Here's the next piece, and y'all stick with me. Y'all might have to pull over on the side of the road and take some notes. The additional 6 that we sold because we took $500 less PVR on the front, we added 6 more people to our customer database.
That's what the part that I love.
Okay, 6 more people to the customer database.
Yes.
Versus the time before. Now, that was just on one unit, okay? So here's what happens. Watch this math. So if we sell 100, if we've got 100 of these $40,000 investments, okay, which is reality in our business.
Yep.
If we have 100 of these $40,000 business, here's where the multiplication comes from. If we have 100 of them, Taylor, on his math of 2,000, has 600 transactions a year. Shelby, by cutting this PVR, okay, throw the textbook out the window a little bit, he goes to 1,200 transactions.
So 100 used cars, based on that math,
Yes.
they go from I sell 600 cars to I sell 1,200.
1,200, and it just starts there.
Okay,
And no,
hit
it does.
him with
It
the
just
math
starts
of that.
here. You now have 400 trade-ins.
My God.
Okay.
400 trade-ins that has the throughput of through the shop for the technician to work on.
Yes.
4 parts to work on.
Yeah.
Okay, get ready for the kicker here. And in addition, instead of Taylor added 600 people to our database on a yearly basis, Shelby added 1,200.
Yeah, I'm getting an extra pair of socks.
1,200. So he gets another 600 people to his database. In our business, the average customer comes to the shop how many times a year?
3 times a year.
3 times a year. So we have 600 more people at 3 times a year. That's 1,800 more transactions through our shop just because you were flexible and said yes to the deal.
Because I focused on and didn't get hung up on, no, this is an iPhone 13 and I know what it's worth. And someone will show up and pay me $2,000, to $1,200,
Yes.
$600. And you guys are like, okay, move on. I'm over this.
I'm not
podcast.
moving on yet.
Like,
okay?
we sit in meetings with other dealers that just get hung, and they're like, no, that deal wasn't profitable. Because sometimes it gets ugly, right?
Oh,
you got
it
to
gets
get
ugly.
You got to get in the negative.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
But it's
so-
worth what it's worth.
Absolutely.
right?
So let's talk about the end of that. So we're looking now. We're at 60, we're at 90, we're at 100 days.
Okay.
And you're losing now. You've reanalyzed. You're like, man, I've missed the ball. I forgot to stay with the market. I've missed these couple of deals. They've moved on, whatever it would be. And now you're, call it, of a $40,000 investment, you're $10,000 in the hole.
Oh, wow.
And we sit in this meeting of
All
going
the
through
time.
with people that they're
All
like,
the
no,
time.
I can't. I got to hold on to it. No, you need to figure out what its real value is at that time and move on.
That's
I have to
two
reinvest.
separate metrics.
It is.
And we look at that. It's so important because everyone thinks, hey, cost versus retail, or it's more or less like we understand the cost and we want to make sure it's right when we acquire it. When we
Yes.
order a new vehicle, we want to make
Very
sure it's the
true.
right one.
Very true.
When we trade for a used vehicle, we want to make sure the money's right for the consumer and for us. But also that was taken into account, and it is what it is. And we price it to the market.
You do. You get it ready to sell from
You
the
don't take
get-go.
into account what the cost is. We're not selling based on cost. We're selling based on market. That could be at a profitable margin.
Yep.
Or if the market swings, you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, I put my foot in my mouth. I'm going to have to add that to my collection.
No.
A thing that makes my skin absolutely crawl, okay, is when somebody tells me how much they have in something. I don't care.
It's irrelevant.
Like,
right?
I 100% do not care what you paid for it. Okay? It's worth what the market says it's worth. The stock market does a great job explaining this.
Or sometimes they'll say their payoff, right?
Or they'll say their payoff. It's completely irrelevant because you're like, well, hang on, the payoff was related to the vehicle. Not necessarily.
No.
Did you roll over $5,000? You know what I mean? Did you finance in a warranty? Did you finance in your sales tax? Just because you financed in $2,500 with the sales tax does not mean your vehicle's worth more. And the great point in that is if somebody says, hey, my payoff's $35,000, my vehicle's got to be worth $35,000. How much is the person's worth that doesn't have a payoff at all?
Is it zero?
No.
I'd love to point that out. Like,
It's not
understand.
zero. Everybody has to understand that the product's worth whatever the customer will pay, which is what the market is.
It's the market demand.
It's the market. If you buy stock ABC at $5 and now it's trading at $15, is it worth $5 or $15?
Yeah.
If you paid $15 and it's trading at $7, is it worth $15 just because you paid $15 for it, or is it worth $7?
So classic old school. This is something that Dad told us.
Sure.
Got from our grandfather.
Oh, I know where you're going.
And there's only two reasons something hadn't sold.
I knew it was
and it's the time, that's your parts, it's service,
it's all of it,
and it's your cars. It's either not ready to sell,
okay, that's
or it's not priced right.
Okay, go over that one more time.
It's not ready to sell,
Okay.
so you can't find the part,
Okay.
or the tools aren't in the bay, or the technician's not in the bay, or the inventory, it's got a flat tire, the windshield needs to be replaced, it won't start,
Dead battery, whatever.
dead battery, or it's not priced to the market to sell.
Okay, these are tools that everybody needs to understand. I'm going to translate that for everybody for you on each part of it. So first, let's talk about it's not ready to sell. So if you're in a business and you have a website that doesn't reflect the service you provide, that would mean it's not ready to sell.
Not ready to
You know
sell.
what I mean? If your employees are showing up and they don't have an embroidered shirt, even if it's a T-shirt, if
They're
you're in the
not ready
landscape,
to sell.
you're not ready. You don't look professional. You're not ready to sell.
Yep.
Okay? It smells bad. It doesn't look good. It's not professional. All right?
Yep.
It's not ready to sell.
Yep.
Or number two, it's not priced
It's not priced right. Your hourly rate's wrong.
Sure.
You're not within the market. You haven't looked to see. We do that constantly throughout the day, and we have many teams, many managers, and thousands of dollars in software to help us to say, hey, your escapes are X.
Yes.
Your fuel pumps are Y.
Yep.
Or your oil changes. We ran that gamut just the other day when we were opening our commercial truck shop. We said, hey, call all these local businesses and see if a customer is looking to change the oil on their RV, what does it cost?
Exactly.
If they're getting a tire, what does it cost?
I love that example, but I'm going to tell you who we had do that. We had our employees do that.
Why did you do that? Because you didn't want to do it?
Nope, because we wanted buy-in from our employees. So when we needed to adjust something from $60 to $110, if our employees are the ones that did the market research for us, now, we had a good idea that it was going to be more expensive.
We knew what the price could be, and we could just set the price, but there's sweat equity.
So we didn't turn them loose to call and figure out everybody else is at $35. That's bad business. Okay, we knew it was going to be more. They had buy-in. They're the ones communicating with the customer.
Yeah.
So then they're like, no, just the other day we were price shopping. Everybody else was $125 an hour. We're $110 or $110 for this service.
Yeah.
So it's either not ready to sell or it's not priced right. Now, what we mean by price right, Shelby talked about phone. Phone is really a good example here. If you have an iPhone 13 that has not sold because you ordered it in the special edition color, and now the iPhone, what's out now, 16, 17?
Yeah, 16.
16. Do you think somebody's going to pay the same amount for the 13 as the 16?
No, and that's a good point. My used vehicles, if the new vehicles drop a big rebate,
Okay.
that affects not only my new vehicles, which is okay because they're affected with rebates.
Sure.
But it also affected everything down the line. My used
Oh,
vehicles.
man, I'm getting ready to go deep here.
And
Go
if
ahead.
you own one as well, the value, because the market just decreased, this is no longer as valuable because there's a newer, later and greater
Yes.
for less cost.
All right, so Shelby just set the stage, and here I go. This goes back to turn.
You've only got 15 minutes.
The faster you turn your inventory, the more protected you are in a market drop. Okay? If you hold on to your inventory longer, you're hanging yourself out
more
there
vulnerable.
for the new iPhone to come out. We're hanging ourselves out there for the manufacturer to come out with a 0% for 72, which then how big does the gap have to be on that 2023 you have on the lot?
Okay, so let's use that reference. So we have some 0% on
Okay.
some trucks or some SUVs, And just fun math fact for you here, and don't math me exactly here, but don't do it. Roughly on $60,000, I'm telling the end user so they don't just say I'm not smart. $60,000 on average rate of about 8% on a new car is what it is. If you run that gamut of 8%, if it doesn't have a special rate, versus the 0%, it's over $10,000 in cost to borrow the money.
Do you know why that's important? Because over 90% of our customers financing is on a monthly budget.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm on a budget.
Absolutely.
I know you're on a budget. You know, it just and understanding that. So when they release that 0%, that used vehicle now has to be at least $10,000 less. Because then they're going to have to borrow it at standard rate.
We're so passionate about this because we come in contact with so many business owners that are maybe even smarter than us, but they just don't get it.
No.
They don't get it. I'll walk into their store and I'm like, hey, you still have X, Y, and Z sitting there. And I'm like, hey, you want to run a special on that? You want to run the cost down? They're like, no, I got to keep my margin. You know what I mean? I graduated this in college, and I got to keep it right here. Turn your inventory.
Humble yourself. So transition into how the heck do you get rid of old stuff?
Okay.
Let's say something got old on you.
All right, so let's talk about that. That's called obsolete inventory. Now, you got to figure out your KPI for obsolete inventory. We already went through that. So if it's over 45 days old, if it's over 90 days old, what do you do to move that inventory besides just putting our pricing down? And I'm going to set this up in the Taylor. I'm kicking it to you. You know, in our pricing, if you were behind the scenes and you looked at all of our tools, we open up a software program that shows us what everybody has for sale, how many days it's been there, what it's been priced at. So we're adjusting prices all the time. It's not a set and forget it. It's not the rotisserie chicken thing. You know what I mean? So what are some of the things you do inventory-wise to help move something?
Absolutely. So Matt kind of hit the nail on the head as far as pricing-wise there. But the reason why we talked about this earlier in the podcast, of your 2 reasons why a vehicle doesn't sell, is pricing and that it's not ready. Your multiple customers have walked by it with your salespeople and they forgot about it. It's gotten a little bit older.
The salespeople have
forgotten about it.
Or got moved further in the lot.
What I love to do, what we all love to do to push down, you have to get that vehicle, and we make a manager, hey, he'll come to us with saying, hey, this needs to be marked down, this needs to be priced, anything else. You say, hey, is it ready to go? Show me your pictures online. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at that vehicle and make sure it is what it is supposed to be online. But then more importantly, I'm going to make sure it is clean, it looks the best, whatever be my pricing of my vehicles are apart, I have it up front and I have it ready to go. So every single customer comes into, I'm going to flip this over to like a restaurant.
Okay.
Do you realize that the special of the day is not something special whenever you go to a restaurant?
Well, what do you mean? How do they come up with
I always buy it because I'm sold and I'm a
you feel good, right?
I
but
feel good about
how
it.
do they come up with their special of the day?
They come up with the special of the day because it's something that they have to, one, either sell because it's going to expire.
Okay, so they have inventory.
Yes, they have an influx of excess of inventory, but food would be. So it's sitting there. So whenever they have their meeting with their service, they say, hey, and they may get a spiff on it, but they say, this is what's available, and you offer it to everybody. So whenever I come out with my special, I know you came in looking for a truck. I'm going to show you this car every single time and offer it up, because then what happens is your customer gets excited. They want to be sold of the product, just like in the food industry. I don't care if it's lame, and I've never had lame before.
Sure.
You made it sound great, and so I want to be involved. I want to buy that. And I want to try that because you made it special. And so it's different than anything else that's in the list there.
And there's 2 parts in that, and you have to realize. So on the employee side of it, oftentimes we'll give spiffs. Say, hey, anything over 120 days old or 200 days old, we'll pay you an extra $200, $400, $500, depending on what it is and what the scarcity is.
Yep.
If we're like, we can see down the barrel, this isn't looking good, and we would rather make a retail deal out of it, take care of a consumer. And inside trader tip, if you're looking for a really good deal on something, you need to ask for something. Say, hey, show me your oldest vehicle.
Exactly.
That is how you get your best deal.
It is.
So if you're looking down the barrel as a manager, managing your inventory, tip one there is you need to make sure that you have incentivized your team, that they know, like Taylor's saying, it's out front and you're showing it to everyone.
Yep.
2, you have to remember when that translates to the customer, we call it whiff them. What's in it for me?
Yes.
You can't say, hey, I'm getting paid for $500 bonus. You want to buy this thing. Hey, this lamb's about to expire. You're going to want to buy it, right? No. Then it's time. We call it the fajita sizzling.
Sure.
It has to
Sell
make
it.
sense. You got to sell it, and it has to be relevant and make sense.
It does.
You know, so you got to put the rubber to the road with that.
Yes.
So the price has to be correct, like Taylor said.
Yep.
So adjust your price.
Adjust your price.
Your highest price should be day one.
Yes.
Okay, and then it should always go down from there.
Yeah.
Okay, it should go down. Doesn't have to be big chunks,
No.
but pay attention to your pricing.
Yes.
Pay attention to your pricing. If you're in the service industry, your pricing should be less in your off season during versus your prime season.
Yep.
Position is what I put down next. Is my number 2. Number 1 was price. Number 2 is position. Taylor talked about position there. So we have hot spots on our lot. The hot spots are where they get the most visibility.
Yes.
They could be on our pads pulling in. They could be on the showroom. There's nothing that says we can't take the oldest car we have and put it on the showroom.
No, it happens often.
every time that I take something out of the lot.
And what did the salespeople say?
Golly, they're like, did we just get this in? And me being wanting to be a manager of pushing them forward, I say absolutely, it just came in. Because it doesn't matter of when it came in. It's ready to go right now.
Just came in the showroom.
It's ready to go. It just came in the showroom.
Yeah.
And so it's ready to go. And I love, and it's the main part of our new showroom, love our new facilities. But as far as putting it in there, wherever your hotspot is, make it where they're not going to trip over it, but they're almost going to trip over it.
They got to get around
and
it. Yeah.
they have to look at it, show, and go
You
around.
have to understand that no one is. Think about a Mexican restaurant around here.
Sure.
Those menus, I know they freak you out. I'm
many
just like, I'm
options.
just going back home and eating turkey, right? There's so many options.
a full
They
finish.
would never look for this or
Yeah.
this or this or this until you can reduce it to ridiculous.
Yes.
Just basic and like, hey, Matt, you came here looking for a good experience and a good meal, right?
Absolutely.
Do you mind real quick if I gave you my pick of the day?
No, not at all. What do you
He
recommend?
would love that because he gets
done.
to close his menu. I'm like, hey, you're going to love the fish fillet. Like, this is amazing. It's
Absolutely.
chef prepared. Like, isn't everything chef prepared?
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And so, like, hey, let me tell you my pick of the day. This is a car that we just got prepared and ready, got on the showroom today. It's our 2024 Escape.
Sure.
It's got the tech package. It's going to give you the driver awareness. It's going to give you the bigger screen, the bigger backup camera. And it's one that we've actually, because we've had it a little bit longer, we've reduced the price
Yes.
drastically.
Oh, I'd like to say.
So this one versus the other one is going to save you an additional $6,000. Are you okay with saving an additional $6,000?
Absolutely. Listen up. Here's what just happened here. Shelby was the salesperson. All right. Taylor was the manager. So in your business, Taylor went to Shelby and he said, this Escape is our special of the day. Taylor positioned that thing on the showroom so everybody could show it. He first incentivized the employee. So Shelby had a spiff on it for the day. It was readily available to serve up to me, the customer.
Yes.
You have to do the same in your business.
Yes.
That brings me to the third part, which is influence. Everybody is watching what you're doing. My dad was a
biggest
master of this. He would drive home something, and I'd be like, Dad, why are you driving that home? Not that it wasn't a neat car, but he could have driven a lot cooler stuff home. And he's like, son, I need everybody to pay attention to this vehicle.
Yes.
So when he saw a vehicle that wasn't selling, he would drive it because then everybody would start talking about
Oh,
it.
it's huge.
Same thing in your business. If you're in a restaurant and it's time for you to eat lunch, whether you like to eat it or not, eat what's not selling. And they'll be like, I just saw my chef today when he picked out his lunch. This is what he had.
That's such a good point. It's funny because our dad was always like
Always.
that. Always like it. And he's like crazy through the roof, humble, like crazy. But and now it's in Crossroads, and everyone asks what we're driving. And that's why I said, hey, is that your driver, what you're driving? Majority of us are driving middle of the road,
Sure.
XLT F-150. It's because, inside tip here,
Yeah.
it's because it's the majority of what
sells.
we sell.
That's
I
So
could- yeah.
people ask me constantly, every day. Just yesterday, someone said, Shelby, what do you drive?
Yeah.
I said, the America's best-selling vehicle, the F-150 XLT. It's my favorite. It's got heated seats. It's got power seats. It's got a big screen. and it's the best price in the parking lot.
It really comes down to, are you in business?
Yes.
Or do you have a hobby and you're just doing what you want?
There are two different things.
God, we could go on for hours.
We keep this one to
couldn't
everybody.
do.
I'm not going to even open up sitting on the beach.
Oh, and it's funny. One of the employees yesterday said, Shelby, what time did you get here this morning? I said, 5:20. I said, well, how late do you do work till? I said, well, today's the last day of the month.
What was the last night? 10?
What time did you?
Yeah.
10 o'clock. They're like,
was a
that's
full
long
pool. It was a
days.
full
And he's
pool.
like, well, I saw you out front with the leaf blower on blowing the parking lot. I was like, yeah. He's like, and I saw you moving the cars. I saw you in the car wash. He's like, you could be on the beach just checking your bank account. I said, that's not how we were raised.
No.
I don't like the beach.
Yeah.
And
That stressed
would,
me out.
oh Lord, I would never expect the rest of the 260 employees to be able to show up and give it their all.
Yeah.
Without us being in the middle giving our all.
And that's the reason when we got plenty of areas that we've got to work on constantly. But when we look at our assets, and our inventories, we pay attention to them because we understand that it's worth the most today.
Yeah.
We got to turn it. And if we don't utilize the power of compounding and the X factor on how many times we can turn it, we did not utilize the investment of the money in the inventory correctly to its full potential. Hey, that's been a great episode today. We got to get to some takeaways, and I hope you guys had some takeaways as you listen today on how you could relate it. If you need more information, make sure to reach out to us on this. We'd love to. We might even have to have a second episode about this. I knew this one was going to be on fire. So let's get to some takeaways here on what we learned today. Taylor, tell them what you think was your best takeaway.
My biggest thing has to be influence. It has to be influence of, well, no matter what you're doing, influence the product to its fullest potential. And if it's taking the thing that doesn't mean the most or it's not as popular or anything, and influence it like it's the best thing that you have to sell.
Yeah.
You bet. What was yours?
I would say my takeaway is don't get attached to anything.
Yes.
Do not get attached. It's not what you like. It's what's selling. And if someone's not selling, you need to find a way to sell it, price it right, get it ready to sell. But do not get your feelings involved on, ooh, I like this one. I should really, really, really ask for all of it. Or I should hold for the right customer.
You bet.
We're talking the X factor, so don't get attached to what you're doing.
Mine would be the long game. The long game. And when we talk about that turn and you're organically building your customer database, when I walked everybody through Shelby and Taylor's turn there, in a mere 10 years, the second one that had more turn would have 18,000 more customers in their database.
How much would you pay for a customer? But
everybody is chasing what you're talking about.
Buying the customer.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the number one thing, whether it be a Google click. The average spend is like $700 to acquire just the option to have a chance at a customer, or you could just turn the inventory quicker. And how many more over 10 years?
18,000 more additional customers. So in a mere decade, and 10 years goes fast in a business, you organically built 18,000 people that are raving fans of yours, who know you, like you, and trust you.
Yes.
That's how you build a business.
Yeah.
Guys, I hope this was a big benefit to you today to understand the value of turn, how to get rid of obsolescence inventory, and how to build your customer database out there and win. Don't forget to follow us online on our website. Any of the socials will be on there at Crossroads Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, wherever you get your podcast. The way to get the up-to-date episodes is you got to follow or you got to subscribe so it'll be right in your inbox. And as always, hey, if they got things we want to cover, we'll cover them, won't we?
Absolutely. Make sure you leave in the comments below or just let us know. And if you want to be a guest, let us know. We're taking some guests, and I think we've got one soon on the verge to come in. But make sure you follow along and put in there what you'd like to hear from us.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and give it a like, share it with your friends and family, and visit our website to send us questions about what you would like to know about the automotive industry or family business in general. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. Thank you again, and we'll see you in future shows.